Welcome back to the Move with Purpose podcast, and today I am joined by the fabulous Kaylee Golding, award-winning presenter, DJ, host, and entrepreneur. Kaylee, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Kaylee, what do I need to understand about your childhood to give me a better insight into the woman you are today?
Oh, straight in. I feel like my childhood, so I've got 4 siblings. So I have 3 brothers, one foster sister. So it's my sister, but she joined us a little bit later in life.
Okay.
And my mom's single parent, and my mom's just a queen. I feel like the reason why I'm so like, oh, let's just try this, let's just be this and try that, is because my mom was very encouraging. Right. And my mom was like, I tried everything. Like, even when we talk about dance, I tried dance classes.
You went to dance class? How did that go?
I weren't that good, but I still kept trying.
Yeah.
But I literally tried everything, and I think my mom definitely instilled that in me. Yeah.
What kind of principles did she give you that you're really seeing come to life today?
I think just be yourself, love yourself, and as long as you're not hurting no one, just be whoever it is that you want to be. And I feel like I definitely am that. Like, I do whatever I want to do. I experiment. I am who I am. I celebrate every part of me.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is definitely because my mum was always like, be who it is that you want to be. Like, no judgment.
And what was the dynamic growing up? Did all your siblings live together?
Yeah, we lived together. Honestly, having 3 brothers is not for the faint-hearted, but no, we had a great time. Like, me and my siblings are so close. I love them so much and I adore them so much. And my house was just a really active household. Like, everyone will always be like, your family needs to be on a TV show because of the stuff that happens in my house. Like, you just wouldn't believe it. We're just all wild, and there's just so many characters.
Are you the oldest?
No, I'm the second oldest, but now that I have my sister as well, I'm now technically the 3rd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so proper middle child, but growing up I was the second oldest.
Did you have middle child syndrome?
A little bit, but to be fair though, like, I was always like loud, so a lot of the time people say like middle children, like they're kind of like more reserved, and I'm not that. So my other little brother, he's also like the middle child as well. He's a lot more like reserved into himself and chilled. He gives middle child. I don't know what the hell I give, girl. I probably
older
give like,
sibling.
Older sibling, because I feel like being the only girl as well, like growing up as the only girl, I was definitely, I don't know, like the control freak, like the family manager, organise everyone, like we're doing this. Forced fun is what my brothers call it. Like,
I like that.
Literally
we don't want to
fun.
go, but we're going because Kaylee's making us.
Literally that. Yeah. Like, we're playing Monopoly because Kaylee wants to play. Like, we're doing this because Kaylee wants to. So I was, that's what I was given.
So that kind of like leadership really was kind of present in your childhood then?
Oh, for sure. Like 100%. It's just instilled in me.
And what area of Birmingham did you grow up in?
I grew up in like Hall Green.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I went to school in Solihull, and then I grew up in Hall Green.
And after school, did you go to university?
Yeah, so I went to uni. That's how I moved to London.
Right.
So I studied like media and stuff in college at BOA, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to university and I'm going to study radio. And I was proper battling between staying in Birmingham and moving to London, but the industry is definitely in London. It's moving to Birmingham now, but when I was 18, there was hardly anything. So I was like, okay, I'm going to move to London, and I got a scholarship. Nice. So I was like, thank God, because I didn't know how I was going to afford to move
so that means
to
you didn't have to pay for your degree?
So there's 2 options. They could either put the money straight to the degree, or they could give you the money. And I was battling between that, but I was thinking I would really struggle otherwise. And I thought, do I just have the money and then that way I can do like volunteering work and internships, or do I go to university in London, really struggle, and spend my whole time working in Tesco, which is what I would have had to do. So I literally just took the money so I could get lots of experience, and it definitely worked out.
And how long were you in London for?
6 years.
Did you find that there was a culture shift moving up there?
Do you know what? No, because I only knew my adult life as London, because I turned 18 in July and I moved to London in the September. So I was only like 2 months into being an adult, as you would say. So I only knew adult life as that. So when I moved back to Birmingham as an adult, I was like, oh my gosh, this is completely different. That was more of like a culture shift for me, because it's completely different. And then now going back to London, I'm like, wow, it's so busy here. Like, everyone's so like on their grind and fast paced and all these things. And even like the nightlife there is crazy and constant. And moving back to Birmingham and then going there, I'm like, this is completely different. But I didn't realise at the time.
Did you find yourself speeding up to kind of like move with the pace of London, or?
Yeah, I definitely was a lot more fast paced in London, but again, that's how I thought life was like when I was there. But I definitely think it's good that I lived in London, because now that I move in Birmingham, I am still very fast paced, and everyone's like, how do you do all these things? And I'm like, it's normal. Yeah. But that's what everyone else does in London.
So coming back to Birmingham, what brought you home?
When One Extra said that they're going to move a show to Birmingham and they offered me the show, I was like, wow. I am definitely moving back. They was like, do you want to move back? I was like, absolutely. Like, my mum's here, my brothers are here, my sister's here, like, my dogs are here, my college friends are here. So everything aside from work, and my older brother, because he ended up moving to London as well, that was the only thing that was in London. Everything was in Birmingham. So the thought of moving back, I was like, yeah.
And did you already have that relationship with the BBC prior to coming back to Brum?
So I did cover for Radio 1 and One Extra a few years prior, and I was always trying to like knock down the doors into getting into One Extra, but it's a process. Like, I did pilots, didn't get picked up yet. So when they was like, oh, do you want to do a show 5 days a week? I was like, what? Absolutely. And they're like, in Birmingham. I couldn't believe it, because even when I was piloting, I didn't know what I was piloting for. So if you don't know what piloting is, it's like kind of like you do like a radio audition. So you do a show as if you was on the station. And I didn't know what show it was for or where it was for. I didn't really know much, just that I was piloting, and if they liked me, would see what happened.
And what does that look like?
So, as in piloting? Yeah. So, usually you would go into like the studios and you would do the show as if it was live, as if right now you're on air on that station. But at the time, I was still on KISS and Hits Radio.
Oh, okay.
So, I wasn't allowed. Like, technically, it would have been all right, but if I was like in the BBC studios, everyone would be like, why is Kaylee here? Yeah. So, I had to do it via Zoom.
Really?
Yeah, it was so weird. So, I had to do my pilot via Zoom because they didn't want me in the building yet. Okay. And so doing it via Zoom was very, very weird. And I was worried, because I was thinking, would they kind of get the best version of me if I'm just like at home in my bedroom with a producer via Zoom? Would that be the best version of me? But luckily they already knew what I sounded like, because I've done cover shows for them before. They hear me on KISS, they hear me on Hits, they know what I sound like. But I was still a bit nervous that it wouldn't be the best version of me.
What was that timeline like, knocking at the door at the BBC to finally getting like conversations live to life, if that makes sense?
Oh my gosh, it was a process and a half. So I think when I was, think of the ages, I think I was 19 or 20 to begin with, and I did something for the student radio. I did a student radio awards demo or something like that. Oh, they do something called Demo Factor, and this is crazy. So a radio demo is like 3 minutes of your best bits. Yeah. And there's this thing called Demo Factor where there's a panel of people and a room full of hopeful presenters, and they play your demo out in front of everyone. And it's like X Factor, so they have a golden buzzer and they can say they don't want to hear it anymore. Okay. So I was like, my name got called out for it and my demo played, and I was so scared, but luckily they golden buzzered me. Nice. And off the back of that, I got a pilot at One Extra. Okay. So I went in, I did the pilot, and nothing came of it. Like, I've never even heard the audio, like nothing come of it. And I remember, because I was like, yeah, this means I'm going on One Extra, they're gonna love me.
Did you feel it was good? Like, you smashed it out the park?
No, it probably would have been terrible. Okay. It probably would have been terrible. But I was a bit delusional. So I thought, yeah, this is it. Like, so I did it. Nothing came back of it. And then I think 2 years later, then I won Student Radio Awards. And off the back of it, I got to do the Radio 1 Christmas cover. So I did a show on Radio 1 for Boxing Day. Yeah. Did that. That was great. Again, nothing come of that. The following year, and all this time, I'm still like emailing them constantly, being like, this is what I'm doing on community radio. I even made like newsletters of like every month of what it is that I'm doing that month. So just so they could see that I was active within like the music scene, that I was doing my thing still. So a year passed since the Radio 1 cover, then they asked me to do One Extra cover for Boxing Day. I did that, and that was during lockdown. So I recorded that at home under my brother's duvet, because if you put the duvet over you, it soundproofs you. Yeah, so I did that from home. And then again, kept asking them to like, can I do some more stuff? Nothing come of it. And then KISS came to me. Because when I was trying to knock down the doors at One Extra, I was also like, sending demos to like Capital and KISS and just everywhere. Yeah. So then I got signed by KISS, was there for a year and a half, but a year into being with Kiss, 6 months actually into being with Kiss, Hits Radio, who are owned by Kiss as well, the same company that own it.
Yeah.
They was like, we want you to work for us as well. So I did that. And then eventually out of the blue, One Extra was like, oh, do you want to do a pilot for us?
Right.
So it was a whole journey, whole process. Like it wasn't overnight at all.
And for like up and coming presenters that want to be on radio, that are watching the pod, what would be your number one advice for like staying resilient during that process?
I think in terms of resilience, like just don't take a no to heart, and even don't take being aired to heart, because everyone's busy, and if you're a boss of any company, you're going to be very busy. A lot of people are going to be wanting to work with you, and you know, they can't listen to every single demo, they can't give every single person feedback. It just wouldn't be possible. So just keep at it, because when I listen back to certain pilots that I've done for even other stations, I listen back and I'm like, this was terrible. Like, how did I think that I was the it girl that they needed at the time? I wasn't ready, but all I had to do was just keep trying and keep practicing my craft. And the best thing about it is that they got to see my development, and that was the most important thing. Like when I joined Kiss, one of the biggest things that was said to me was, we've saw your development and we've saw your growth. So even though we didn't take you on 2 or 3 years ago, Kaylee then to Kaylee now, there's massive development, and we can see how much more you can develop with us now on your team as well. So I think just keep at it and just keep growing. That's the most important thing.
So when these stations contact you and say, we want to take you on, etc., what does that look like contractually? Like, do they lock you down for a certain number of days of the week? How does it work? Yeah,
so you'll be offered a show, and then you'll have that show for a certain period of time. So my first Kiss contract was a year. Hits was a year. My first One Extra contract was a year. So majority of the time it is year contracts, and then you're kind of like contracted to do a certain amount of shows throughout a year. So if you're just like a weekend show, then they'll work out how many weekends there are in a year, and then maybe give you like some days holiday as well. And that's just how it works contract wise.
Since taking on Radio One Extra, how has it changed your life?
I think people think that you join somewhere like One Extra and then that's it, your life completely changes straight away. But I was doing radio constantly anyway, because I've been a radio geek. So it just meant that what I've been doing is just on a bigger scale. There's more people listening, like the fee's bigger. I'll be doing more DJ gigs than what I was doing before. But it's all things that I was just doing before, but just on a way bigger scale and a bigger platform.
And as a result, your personal brand has obviously catapulted.
Yes.
Has that been intentional? Like, have you been intentional about the platform that you've got to leverage other opportunities, or? Yeah,
like for sure. But I've been like growing my platform for ages. But even like when I call it a platform, it's strange because it is just me. Like it's quite strange when you're like a presenter or a DJ, because of your company is you. Your platform is you. I am the brand. So everything that I do is part of the company that I do. So everything that I post, it is just all parts of me. Do you know what I mean? Like whether it be the DJing side or the lifestyle side or the relationship dilemma polls, like it's all things that I am just interested in, but it's just all comes together as a platform.
I remember being at a Skepta preview for his new film, and I didn't know you were hosting it, but I was at the back, and obviously he's such a mogul. And I felt like you controlled and created a space that just made him feel really close and relatable to the audience. And I watched you in action, and I was just like, you're lit at what you do. And I just was thinking, how is she sat there interviewing Skepta, not like completely like, oh my gosh, how is this guest in front of me? How do you prepare for having interviews with people that obviously have been about building big careers?
It's nice that you say about the I can't even say it, being relatable, basically. That's the word. Because that's always what I try to do with every guest that I have, because they are just humans. And it's the only person that I think I'd get starstruck by is Beyonce. Everyone else, I do feel like I'm like, they are just humans. And it's always important for me to find that relatable side of them, to find that side that it's kind of like, actually, you are a human and you are just going to work. You are just doing your craft and you are really good at it.
I was going to ask what your prep looks like.
Yeah, that is the most important thing to me, because then I kind of know the kind of character that they are.
Right.
So let's say I've never interviewed someone like Summer Walker, but if I interviewed Summer Walker, I probably wouldn't be as loud and bubbly and like raw, because she's quite an anxious, quiet person.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just being aware of the kind of person that they are and knowing what it is that I can bring out of them and how to bring out the best in them.
What's been your favourite interview to date?
Oh, I always go back to, there's two that I really loved. It's so bad. How have I forgot his name? Rudolph Walker. He plays Patrick in EastEnders. So when I interviewed him, it's really random, but it's because I learned a lot.
Right.
Because I remember that was about Windrush. And when I did that interview, I just learned so much about like the Windrush generation and what it was like for him. And even I've never thought about what it looked like being in EastEnders for that long and being such a big figure in the Black community for so long. Because sometimes I felt like, it's not until that moment that I felt like he was overlooked, and it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this guy's a legend. Like he's done so much greatness for so long and been representing the Black community on TV for so long. So that interview, I remember that left me with a lot of thoughts. And the second one is probably Sean Paul, because he was just like a whole vibe. He was so much fun. Like I had such a good time interviewing him. And I interviewed him twice, because once was via Zoom and then the second one was in person.
Nice.
And both times I just caught such a vibe with him that was a lot of fun.
Who are you aspiring to interview next? I know you've mentioned Beyonce and Riri being starstruck by them, but are there any people you'd be like, oh, I'd love to have an interview with yourself?
Do you know who I'd love to interview, but I think it would be very challenging, but I would love the challenge? It's 50 Cent.
Okay.
Because I just think that he's so interesting and so
controversial,
witty and controversial and even like petty, that I think it would take a very good, strong broadcaster. And I don't even know whether I'd be ready yet, but it would take a very strong broadcaster to be able to do a good interview with him.
Right.
So I think lately I'm very intrigued by him, and I think it would really challenge me as a broadcaster.
I'm going to read a little segment that I took from a recent interview that you did.
Okay.
And you said, I call myself mixed race. Growing up, I'd be called Black, but over the last few years, I've stopped calling myself that because I'm very much mixed race. I might say that I'm Black from heritage. For the longest time, people said, if you're mixed race, you're Black, and that's just what it was. But it took a few years of unlearning that. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So I remember throughout the Black Lives Matter movement, particularly, there's a lot of conversation around Black identity, Black British identity, and also mixed race identity. And like I said in that interview, like for the longest time, it was like, if you're mixed race, you are Black, and that's that. But I found like throughout the Black Lives Matter movement, everyone was like, well, no, you're not Black, you're mixed race. And to begin with, I think it was kind of hard, because it kind of felt like we was being shut out of majority of conversations. I say I felt like I was being shut out of a lot of conversation.
Yeah.
But then when I really thought about it, I thought, well, actually, being mixed race, it is a whole different experience, and there's different battles and trials and tribulations that we go through, which is like trying to figure out our identity, like trying to understand what it's like, you know, living and not having a parent that actually looks like us, like having a parent that doesn't really know what our experiences are like because they are different to us.
Yeah.
And there's just so many different things that are different being mixed race. So I kind of learned, actually, it's okay that I don't quite 100% fit in with being white, and I don't 100% fit in with being Black, because I'm neither, actually. I am mixed race. That is who I am.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just learning and finding myself and finding my identity and understanding my heritage.
Love that. And I know you mentioned about your mum being very pivotal in your upbringing. Did you have a relationship with your dad?
No, actually. So he was in our lives until I was like around the age of 6, and then he left us. And I think even that in adulthood, it was a lot of learning my culture, because of those parts of my culture that I did learn through, like my mum would make an active effort to kind of like try and teach us about Jamaican culture the best that she could, but she is a white woman, so she could only do so much. And then I do have cousins where they're still in touch, like they're still in touch with their Jamaican side, and their dad was around, so I'd learn a lot through that side of my family. But then when I was maybe about 18, especially when I moved to London, I was like, no, I really want to learn more about my culture.
Okay.
And it's so mad because like even like oxtail, I only tasted oxtail like a few years ago.
Really?
Because I never had it growing up.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
there's so many things that like I'm learning about my heritage. And there's things like, don't get me wrong, like the stuff that I definitely knew the whole way through. But there's parts that I didn't know. And it's exciting. Like I find it really exciting.
Would you say that your dad leaving had an impact on your family home?
Oh, 100%. I think anyone not having a parent present, whether it's your mom or your dad, it is hard, like, and it is difficult, and it was a lot to get my head around growing up. And you have like, you know, like abandonment issues and all these things, but I think like it was okay as well, because I still had a great childhood. Like my mom was so amazing, and my nan was everything and more, and my aunties and my cousins and my family are so amazing that I had a happy childhood. Good. But no matter how happy your childhood is, if you don't have a parent around, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're going to feel that abandonment issue. You are going to feel like, oh, well, why did he leave? Why doesn't he want us? You're going to feel those feelings. But through therapy and self-discovery, I
was going to ask if you ever had those questions answered, or what you did with those like burning questions or feelings of abandonment. Did it lead to anything else?
I think therapy definitely helped. But even just like understanding and being at peace with the fact that the questions aren't going to be answered. Because sometimes you can have a lot of questions about stuff and you think you're always going to get an answer, when sometimes actually you're not going to get an answer, and you have to be okay with not having the answer.
Yeah.
So I think that was important for me, just being like, well, do you know what? It is what it is. It's okay. And I'm going to be okay regardless.
Do you have a relationship with your dad now, or is it still?
No.
If you seen him tomorrow, what would your reaction be?
I always think this, but it's mad because I don't bump into him. Okay. Even though like I'm back in Birmingham, and even like no one in my family bumps into him, but he's here, he's somewhere.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, because I feel like you wouldn't know until you're in that situation. And I always think like, would I still recognise? Because I was so young.
Yeah.
And like I see pictures of, like I've saw pictures of him, but no recent ones. So I'm like, oh, would I even recognise him? Would I walk straight past him? Would he walk straight past me? Like I actually don't know. And I always think like, I wonder whether he's heard me. Like whether he's flicked through the radio and then whether he's clocked and heard me. But you don't know.
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that, because I know it's quite personal. And do you know what's really interesting I find about our community? There's a lot of us that have Black fathers that have walked out and left us. And there's like a taboo that being a Black man, are you going to be consistent? Are you going to be present in your family home? And my dad was present, but he was also absent. So there was times when he'd be absent because he battled with addiction. And at the time, it was having that thing of, I've got questions, but they weren't being answered. And why are they not being answered? I want to know what's going on. But now in adult life, I'm like, they're still not answered as fully as I'd like them to be. But it's just being at peace with that.
Yeah. 100%.
And almost just letting go of the idea of having both mom and dad present that I had, and just releasing it and going with the flow.
I don't know about you, but also in adult life, like I've saw people that have both parents in their life, but also it was not a nice home. Like a lot of like arguments or like domestic abuse or just loads of things. And I think like, although I didn't have my dad, I had a really happy childhood. Yeah. And I found a lot of peace in that, because everyone has their trials and tribulations. Like everyone has things that they go through, and it's not until I'm in adulthood and I'm meeting people that have both of their parents that I'm like, actually their childhood wasn't this amazing family just because they had their dad at home. And I found that really interesting.
A lot of parents hold it together thinking it's going to be better for the child. I know my mom and dad did that for a long time, and as soon as they split, I was the first one like, thank the Lord. Like, really? Why did it take so long? But do you feel like if you were in a relationship that wasn't working and you had kids, would you hold it down for the sake of the kids, or would you make the decision to be like, oh, this isn't working?
I feel like it just depends on how bad it is and whether it's something that could be worked through. But I think if it's a toxic household, then it needs to be looked at, and I wouldn't want to put my kids through that. I think now, like everything I do think, I just wouldn't want to put my kids through stuff like that. And I think, especially in my generation, we are a little bit more aware of trauma and the trauma that you can bring to someone.
Absolutely.
And I think we're more open to talk about it. And the thought of putting my kids through any form of trauma, that scares me. Like I don't have kids yet, but the thought of that scares me. So I think if it was a toxic household and we've tried, I'd be like, okay, no, this is not working.
I love what you said about our generation being more aware of trauma, because I just feel like we talk about therapy a bit more.
100%.
I was talking to my nan about this the other day, and she was like, I hope you're not talking about the family business in therapy. And I was just like, well, nan, that's what I mean. Like, our generation is completely all for therapy. Yeah. But I feel like the generations that went before us are a bit more like, you know, we shouldn't be sharing what's going on in the family 100%, home. What is that about?
Because I feel like before as well, because mental health wasn't really spoken about, it would only be spoken about like with extremes. So you'd only need therapy if you are really, really struggling, or like you're in a mental health home and you have to stay there because you're really not okay. But it's okay to actually just be a bit sad and you just want a therapist and you just want someone to talk it out with. Like you haven't got to be all the way on this side of the spectrum.
For sure.
And when you look at just like physical health, there is a spectrum with that. Do you know, whether it's like a migraine or a really long terminal illness that you're facing, there's a whole spectrum. Whereas I feel like for the longest time, mental health wasn't looked at like that. Do you know what I mean? It's okay for you to have, I don't know, a really tough year, but be okay for the rest of your life after that. So I think people just wasn't really open to look at it that way.
How long have you had a therapist for?
So I first went in, do you know what? I tried therapy before back in, I think it was like 2019, and it was terrible. Like it was so bad, but it's because it was a type of therapy. Like I think it was CBT, I think that's what it's called, but it wasn't for me. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing therapy. Everyone says it's so good. That was terrible.
What was it like? What was the experience?
God, it was giving me homework. I had sheets of homework, and I was like, what is going on? I've got enough stress in my life, and you're giving me homework. Yeah, girl, this was not for me. I couldn't stand it. And then I thought, I'm gonna give it a go again, and I gave it a go again, and I just really clicked with that therapist. And that's what it is. It's about clicking and having the right type of therapist. So I did that, and that was through the NHS. So I had like, I think it was like 16 sessions, which is actually a lot to get through the NHS. Usually you only get about 8.
And you're on the waiting list forever.
God, I was on that waiting list for time. I was on the waiting list, but I stayed on the wait because I think it's always better to be on a waiting list than not to. Because some people will be like, I'm not even going to try, but by the time you finish moaning about it, 6 months later, you could be having your session. So, but she was really, really good. And then I came out of therapy after that, and then I reached out to her again at the beginning of this year and was like, please can I just like pay for you privately? Like I know you got NHS, but can I just pay for you privately? And then for the past, I think it's been like 4 or 5 months, I've just been having monthly sessions with her, because I don't have it every week, it's just monthly.
Yeah, like a check-in.
Just like a check-in, and it's really nice. And she was a little bit skeptical to begin with of, does therapy work that way, that you can do it monthly? Like it should be, you're actively working on something.
Or you're on a program, like a
like a proper program. But for me, I said it's nice for me to just have someone a month that I can just talk to, that's not involved in my life, that's actually removed, that I can just come for an hour and just vent and just get it all out and just be like, this is what's happened for the past month. And just to have that hour space in my life, because I'm very busy. Like I don't have that much space in my life to just sit there and vent at someone for an hour. It wouldn't be fair on that person either for me to just be like,
exactly.
So it's just nice to have that monthly check-in of, this is what's going on, blah, 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 blah. She'll give me some advice, I go off and think about it, and I find it really helpful.
I love that. And do you know what? I'm an advocate of, like you said, not having a program, but just a continuous check-in. So I've had the same therapist for, I want to say, the past 9 years.
Wow, is that how long?
That's a long time.
That's a really long time.
But like every fortnight, maybe monthly if I'm really busy. And then recently, that was a male therapist I've had for that length of time. Recently, since becoming a mom, I've then got another therapist that's like a mom and has experience raising children and stuff. And then it's the same like monthly. But those sessions, I just really look forward to them.
Yeah.
Like it's time to, like you said, have that release. So important.
100%. It's interesting as well what you say about like now changing your therapist to someone that's like more relatable to you, because I see a lot of people say that they feel like they need their therapist to be like the same as them. So like if they're black, they need a black therapist. If they're part of the LGBTQ plus community, they need someone that's part of that community to be their therapist as well. But my therapist is the complete opposite to me. The only similarity is that she's a woman. That's it. But I find that so helpful because it's nice because it forces me to explain things. And when I'm explaining it, I'm like, oh, wait, that's why I feel this way about that. Because sometimes when you're part of the community, it's kind of like assumptions of that we've gone through the same thing and those assumptions. Whereas her not having any assumptions because she hasn't experienced the same things as me.
I like that,
I actually really like it.
Does she offer you a different perspective?
100%. And rather than, again, like her being like I know how this is, she'll be like, well, tell me how that is for you. How was this for you? What is it like being part of this community for you? And I find that interesting.
Moving on, actually, from your last point, I was watching a video on your podcast the other day, the On Your Gaydar podcast, and you had a guest on that was talking about being Christian and also being a part of the LGBT community and how they were navigating that space.
Yes.
Loved that conversation. Absolutely loved it. Does faith play a part in your life?
Yeah, so I'm Christian and I'm not like super religious in the sense of like I don't go to church every week. Like I pray like every other day, but I don't actively go to church. I don't actively like read the Bible every night, but I definitely am Christian. It's how I've been brought up. I grew up going to church and I have a lot of faith in God and I feel like I have my own personal relationship in God. And when it comes to like the community, like I've always just felt like I have my relationship with God and I know that God loves me and that is all I need to know. How
have you found that the two communities either collide or don't?
See, I think growing up in church, it's something that I never really thought about it that much. It's not until my brother came out as gay and a comment was said to him in church. Like, I think he came out and it was something like, I can't remember 100%, but it was something along the lines of, oh, God will forgive you. Wow. And he didn't go back. And then I'm so obsessed with my siblings. Like, he didn't go back. And then far after, I didn't go back.
Yeah, you took him that. You found my brother, you found me. Yeah,
like, I get that. And that was said to him, and that stopped him from going to church. And I always think about it, and I just think, well, realistically, you're not supposed to judge as a Christian. Like, that is something you're not meant to do. And I just think God loves everyone, like, and God made me, God understands me. So I just think there should never be any judgment for anyone. And I think anyone's relationship with God or religion is their relationship. You should never impose on what your thoughts are or your beliefs or your judging, because it's their decision and it's their decision to have whatever relationship with religion is what they choose. So that's just how I go and how I navigate it.
Was it your younger brother?
My older brother.
Did he come out before you?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah. Did you kind of glean from his experiences to kind of navigate your own trajectory, or how did it work?
Not really. The only thing that I feel like I lent towards his experiences was going gay clubbing for the first time, because he was like, he would come back being like, God, I had the best time ever. And I remember, I think I was like 16. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I want to come. I really want to go. But I think over that being gay clubbing, it was just clubbing that I just like it was just my older brother telling me that he was having a great time out, and I just wanted to do the same thing and go out with him. But no, because our experiences were completely different coming out, and even like figuring out sexuality, like he knew from a very young age, whereas I was more so a teenager, experimenting, seeing what works for me, what don't, and yeah, so our experiences were completely different.
Interesting. When you came out, what would you say the reception was like?
I was so scared to come out, like. But I think, do you know what it was for me? Because as I said, I was still figuring myself out, and I didn't come out, like I fell out of that closet, girl. Like I fell out of that closet because my brother's friend saw me texting the girl and told my brother, and then my brother told my mom. Right. So like I didn't do this whole coming out thing. It was kind of like, what's going on there, Kaylee? Like, but it's because I was still trying to figure myself out at that time. I didn't know. Whereas my brother, he was like he never has been intimate with a girl before. He knew that he was gay. Yeah. Whereas I didn't know what I was. Like, even like I had a boyfriend, like as a teenager, I was in a relationship trying to figure out, well, I like him, but I like girls too. So what is this? Like, what actually is this? So I think I didn't understand, but it's forever changing. But that's why now, like, even like I prefer to call myself queer because it's kind of like you don't know, you are just floating and you're just experiencing, you just know that you're not straight, and that's just what it is. Because,
I read a little bit about you talking about Birmingham Pride.
Yes.
And you were like, it is just the most inclusive, liberating space. I've never been to Birmingham Pride.
Oh, you've got to go.
Talk to me about why it feels so freeing, that specific Pride.
Because the other prides that I've personally experienced is very much for, I would say it's more for like white men in the sense of the music. And I know not every single white man loves house and dance and Madonna and Lady Gaga. I know that that's not the case, but there's no real representation in the other prides that I've gone to. Whereas when you go to when you go to Birmingham Pride, there's so much representation. Like there's stuff for Asian people that are part of the LGBTQ plus community, like people that are Black heritage that's part of the community, white people that are part of the community. There's something for everyone. So I go there and I hear dancehall, I hear Afro beats, I hear Amapiano, I hear funky house, I hear garage, I hear all the music that I love, but it's in a safe place that we can all act up and act out, and the boys are twerking, doing the splits, and no one's looking at them any kind of way, and they can dance how they wish that they could dance in other Black spaces. And that's what is so beautiful and so important, because for ages I feel like prides were only celebrating at one part of the community. When intersectionality is a real thing. Like there's people that are part of ethnic minorities but also part of the LGBTQ plus community. So why can't they be celebrated correctly? Why can't they celebrate the music that they enjoy? And that is why I just love Birmingham Pride so much.
And did that kind of give you the inspiration to start the Hot Girl Brunches, or what was the inspo for that?
So it gave me the inspiration to start On Your Gaydar, but for Hot Girl Brunches, so I found, because of me being like feminine, I will go anywhere. So whereas like the boys in the community, they would only go out in the gay clubs, whereas I will go to straight places, I'll go to gay places, and I'll be the same no matter where I go. But I found like whenever I was going to like straight places, girls weren't as expressive as what they are in gay spaces. Even like straight women will go to gay places and they'll be acting up, they'll be doing the splits, they'll be doing the absolute most, but it's because they felt safe there, and that's why they'll do whatever they want to do. Whereas when they was in these straight places, they weren't acting up and acting out and acting bad. So in my head I was thinking, well, what happens if we merge the two? What happens if I could create the environment and the safe space environment that's in gay clubs in a world that's for everybody, and where heterosexual people can come and they feel free, and women can act however they want, and they don't feel like they're going to be grabbed, they don't feel like they're going to be judged. So that's what the whole incentive was behind Hot Girl Brunch. It was just creating a space where women can act up and act bad, and no one's looking at you like why are you wearing that for? Why are you doing that? No judgment, just a good time, and just celebrating feeling free and feeling sexy and feeling bad. Like, oh, I love it. So that's how that was created. It's just a space for everyone, and guys can come, but if you're coming, you can't judge us, you can't grab us, like you can't, like you have to respect our space. And that's what Hot Girl Brunch is.
What's the where do you see it going? What's the vision for it?
So now there's so many people going, bring it to Manchester, bring it to London. So I think it's just growing the space and then bringing it to other places. But I couldn't imagine it, because it's hard, because when it comes to growing the space, I don't want it to lose that authenticity of what it is. That's really important for me, because I see a lot of events grow and they scale it up so big that it doesn't feel as like community based anymore. It doesn't feel as intimate, and people aren't playing games because there's too many people in the room and all these things. So I think for Hot Girl Brunch, rather than scaling it up to be an event that's a massive capacity, it'll probably just be more frequent and in different places, different locations around the UK.
So you're known as the favourite girl from Brum.
Yes.
Developing a personal brand, is that something you've been intentional about, or has it just been organic?
So it began as organic, and then it moved into being intentional. So the way that actually started, I was in London and I had my accent, and I was everyone would be like, oh my God, your accent's so strong. So I was so brummy. It's diluted a little bit now, but I was so brummy when I first went there. And everyone would be like, oh my gosh, you're that girl from Brum, you're that girl from Brum. And I was so paranoid about my accent to the point that I wasn't even trying to be a presenter. I wanted to be a producer, because I thought, I've got a lisp, I've got an accent, I'm not a fan. And then because everywhere that I was going, everyone was like, oh, you're that girl from Birmingham, blah, blah. I've got an attitude. I was like, yeah, I'm your favourite girl from Brum. So now
on it.
And then it kind of just picked up as a slogan. And it just kept building and building. And yeah, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna play on this actually. And that's how I kind of built a brand around it. And it definitely made a difference because being in a different city, everyone knew as soon as you hear a Birmingham accent, it's probably going to be Kaylee. And then I was just like the girl leading for Birmingham outside of Birmingham. Nice. So then it meant when one extra wanted to move to Birmingham, there was only one person they really could have called. Like they had to get me involved. So yeah.
What would you say is next for your career?
It's such an exciting time because I actually don't know. Okay. And it's weird because I've been saying this for like the past year and a half. I always wanted one extra, like 1 till 4, one extra. That has been the dream since forever. So now that I'm here, I'm kind of like, I just want to do the best job possible. Okay. I want to be the best broadcaster possible. I want to grow Hot Girl Brunch, make it be the best event possible. But then there's other things that I want to experiment and kind of learn about. Like I want to learn a lot about TV. It's a different world to radio. So it's a case of starting again and relearning again. And what does TV presenting look like? How do I get into it? So that is something that I definitely want to
reality shows into. Or what you lean into?
No, like actual presenting. Okay. Like I'm not a reality TV star. Like it's just not, it's not my bag. Obviously, if it was like go on Celebrity Big Brother or go on I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here, then I would do them things. Yeah. But I'm a presenter first and foremost. I'm not gonna, just go on to Love Island. Like it's not my vibe. So yeah, presenting.
So growing that. I always ask my guests to finish up by leaving one nugget of wisdom for our listeners. Could be about absolutely anything we've spoken about today. What would yours be?
So there's always one piece of advice that I always give, no matter where I go, this is always the advice that I give, just because I think it's so important to just don't try to be perfect. Just get out there, do it, experiment. It's the only way you're going to learn. It's the only way that you're going to develop. Because I think everyone procrastinates a lot because they're worried that they're not good enough, or they're worried that it's not going to look this way. It's not going to be that way. Whatever it is that you have, like whatever equipment, whoever you are, whatever it is you have, the tools that you have, use that now and just keep growing because the other things will come. You'll develop, and that's the most important thing.
Kaylee, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.